Alright, continuing with our HighPoly series, we're going to continue where we left off here. And right now I'm going to try to connect all the shapes I created earlier. And to do this, I'm going to basically use the same method I used to create the sides and copy them over. And I'm just going to line them up. And so all the edges match up. I'm going to go into sub-object mode here. And I got the edges selected. And I'm going to go into and shift click on the verts and move them along so they line up with the other ones. And this is going to let me get nice 45-degree angles. And that's going to help later with smoothing on the corners and give it that machined feel that this prop would have off a production line or in a warehouse, how it would be built. So you can see I got a nice crisp corner there now, and I'll go through and weld the verts, and I'm going to repeat that for all the corners going up through, and it'll be a little bit different for the inside corners. And you'll see I'll copy that by shift dragging the entire object, and instead of copying it as an element, I copied it as another object. And this will let me bring it in, push it up a little bit, and flip the symmetry on it, mirror it up, and then by adding it to this original object, I've already got a quick part of that worked out. So you can see here, just gonna do the same thing all over again. I'll go into X-ray view here, and like I said earlier, using X-ray view helps a lot because it'll allow you to see through your mesh and see where you're moving stuff around. So there we go. And I hit my S key there, and I have that bound to snaps, and I'll use the snap tool a lot, especially with environment art. I'll use snaps a lot with building modular assets, and it helps keep things on the grid, keeps things nice and nice and tight and accurate. And it's really what you want to do is, not be sloppy with your work, and keep things nice and cleaned up, and easy to read and understand. Because if you need to make fixes, it's a lot easier to fix a file that's cleaned up and it's nice and tidy and built well. So like, continuing on with what we did earlier, and the snap tool can kind of bug out once in a while. There's a few things you can do to fix it. Right now I only have it snap to verts. Sometimes people will leave snap to grid on in verts, and you'll start getting some weird snaps, and it'll snap off the screen. So go into your snap settings and make sure everything's set up correctly, and you can use that as a very powerful tool to help with your modeling. So instead of redoing that whole shape up there, I'm just going to shift drag that up and make a copy of it and actually keep it as an element of this model. So you'll see now I'm just going to go ahead and bridge these two and then collapse, and you can see how now that I show the turbo smooth, it's getting all kinds of smooth. It's smoothing out, but it's not smoothing the way we want it to be. It's not getting that nice hard edge, and we'll go in and fix that in a little bit. But I'm just gonna finish the bezel here on the inside of where the shell and the hull of the data pad will meet up with the screen itself. So you can see I'm already closing stuff off, and a little bit of pre-planning there earlier allows me to just start welding these and connecting these verts together. And this is going to help with our HighPoly, is we want to have the shapes flowing nice and nice poly flow, so we're getting really nice even smoothing throughout the model. You don't always have to model in quads. HighPoly, basically you just want it to work, and you don't want any distortion in the model. You don't want any weird artifacts that might bake through to the normal map. So if you have something that's 6-7 sided and it's working smooth and correctly, then go with it. Don't make it a huge headache to get that the 4-sided polygons at all times. And you'll see, just with experience and playing around with things, you'll see what will smooth out, what won't. And Just it all comes with experience and doing things, and rule with HighPoly: if it's not working right, add more geometry. So I've heard that a couple times. So I tend to be a little bit overzealous with some things here, and I get verts down really close, and sometimes it's actually a bad thing. You don't want to zoom too far into the model, because if you do, you'll start modeling things, and your edge flow and edges will start to be really tight, and you don't want to do that. It might be accurate to how it would be built in real life. Unfortunately, in CG, we gotta kind of cheat things and make it set up so it will actually work in a game and look decent. And a lot of times with that, it's actually making edges softer than they would actually be in real life. And the reason we do this is when we're going to bake our normal maps from the high poly down to the low, the raycaster will actually catch the light better if it's on 45-degree angles and rounded over more than it would if it's a 90-degree angle. And that's something you'll learn. You'll learn very quickly that you'll see, geez, why isn't this baked? Why doesn't this have any depth? And if you go back and look, usually it'll be because you didn't round things over enough, you didn't chamfer, or you just have something that's just way too sharp of an angle, and it's just not gonna catch the light the right way, and you're not gonna get the bakes and rendered texture results that you really want and strive for. So this is something definitely focus on in the beginning. Is the edge flow and seeing how tight your edges are. So zoom out from your model, and it helps to see if knowing what it's going to be used for. Is it going to be used for a first-person shooter? Is it going to be used for a third-person over-the-shoulder like Gears of War type game? Is it going to be used for an RTS where the camera's going to be really far out and pulled away, where you're not going to see a lot of the micro detail? And this is all stuff that's really important, because it helps you decide what details you're going to model. Helps you what details you're going to do in the high poly, or what details you might just leave for texturing. There's a lot of games that are made that a lot of guys don't do high poly work. It is time consuming. It gets really nice results, but there's a lot of times where you can do a model with just tile and textures and photo source stuff that you don't need to spend days or a week doing a high poly model for some assets. And you'll learn that, and that's depends on what studio you work at. So it changes everywhere you go, and art direction for the game itself. And so you always got to be ready for anything. You got to learn so much as an artist in this industry that you got to keep on top of everything, and learn what everybody's doing basically, and try to keep up. It's always changing. It changes quickly. So you definitely never stop learning. One of the best things you can do is just do personal work. It's hard to justify that time getting home from work or a long day and sitting in front of your computer for even longer. But I mean, it pays off, and it'll make you a better artist. And you can share those things you learn with your teammates at work, or on a forum like Polycount or CG Talk. And joining these forums is a great thing. It helps you become more efficient as an artist. It gives you great connections to other people, and you can learn what their techniques are and how they're doing things. So get involved with the CG community. Get involved with your peers and friends at work, and share some ideas. Put a small tutorial up when you learn something, and see if somebody can benefit from that. I know I personally have learned a ton from other people. So getting back into the model here, I'm just going through and closing all the edges off, welding it, moving verts here and there, and I'll use a lot of the graphite modeling tools. And right there I use the insert vert a lot, and I'll just select an edge, and I have it set up for a hotkey, and I'll hit that, but it's under the selections up top, under the poly modeling and edges. You'll find it, and you'll basically just add a vertex right in the very middle of your edge. So it can be used for a couple different things: clean up geometry and welding it to other ones, connecting it to other verts, or just changing how you want the flow to go. So that's the end of that video. We'll continue on with more of the HighPoly stuff in the next one, and if I tend to move along too fast, I'm sorry. I'll try to keep up and explain everything. I tend to use a lot of hotkeys, so it might be a little bit harder to follow, but most of the stuff I use I will touch on, and you should be able to pick it up after I mention it the first few times and see what I'm using. So we'll continue on with the next video.